World Contraception Day takes place on the 26th of September. It aims to raise awareness on the different types of contraceptives that are available and to also enable young people to make an informed choice when it comes to their sexual and reproductive health. Did you know that the unmet need for family planning among young women is 12.6%, which is higher than the national level, which is 10.4%? We are here at the ZNFPC studios with a lovely panel that is going to be giving us more information concerning the World Contraception Day and the contraceptives themselves. So we're going to give you guys a chance to introduce yourself, starting with you, Varaiza.
Thank you, Wazanai. I am Varaiza Sosa from Youth Action Movement under Zimbabwe National Family Planning Council. Thank you.
Hello viewers, this is Melody Gwanunga from Say What, and I'm an SRHR defender.
Hello everybody, my name is Alpha, both were Gwatizo. I'm with Youthwise Zimbabwe. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I am Sponginko Simshapaidze and I am from the Young People's Network on Sexual Reproductive Health, HIV and AIDS.
As stated to you, my name is Wadzanai Zimwasha and I will be the moderator for this panel discussion. So we'll start with you, Melody. Can you tell us the challenges that young people are facing when it comes to SRHR and HIV?
So, for the young people, as an SRHR defender, we have noted that there are a lot of gaps when it comes to SRHR service provision, because when you talk of consent, we see the age is at 16 and it's about to raise to 18. But when you haven't reached the age of consent, you cannot access SRHR services. But now we have young people who are indulging before they reach the age of consent. We just want every young person to access the SRHR services, whether they reach the age of consent or not. We can look at South Africa. A person at the age of 12 can access SRHR services even before they reach the age of consent. So these are some of the challenges that we are facing now, because we have seen that the environment, we tend to say our culture, when we talk of these things of sexual and reproductive health things, is something immoral to say. Young people, we are saying, say what, we are coming with the condoms and we do condom demonstration to the young people. Now we have to face reality. Kuti ama 2000 they are indulging. Streets young people are indulging. So at the end of the day, we want the young people to access those services that they need, and we also need friendly youth service providers. You can look at the tertiary institutions. We have my sisters ku clinic, but if you want to access the services, sister Wawombe, she's at the age of maybe a mai wangu or ya gogo vangu, to go and say, sister ndakaita zvakadaro nezuro, unongochitochka as a young person. So we want services that are conducive for us as young people, because at the end of the day, say what, we want a generation of healthy young people, and we say by the year 2030 we want zero HIV new infection. But how can we reach that point when we say when you are below the age of consent you cannot access the services? The age of consent is okay, we are fine with that, but we are saying below the age of consent we need to access services. And as say what, we have noted a gap of some young people who cannot access services because they don't have money. For example, you have reached the age of consent, but you don't have the money for Jadeo, for Loop, to go to the service provider. As say what, we have the voucher system, whereby you can come through to our offices, the head office, or you can call 577, which is a toll-free number. They can write a voucher for you to go and access the services. So these are some of the challenges, and say what, we are coming in with solutions to the gaps that we are seeing.
All right. Yes. Thank you so much, Melody. And Varedzo, what are some of the key drivers to the challenges that have been stated?
Thank you, Wazanai. So I believe that the major driver for the challenges that have been stated is unemployment. So when somebody is not going to work, they think about being a drug addict, they think about having babies, because that's the only activity that they can do at the moment. So I believe that unemployment is one of the key drivers that leads to the challenges that we mentioned by Melody. And also the other thing, we're talking about cultural issues, we're talking about religious beliefs. We look at the white garment churches, the issues of early child marriages, that's where they start. We look at teenage pregnancy, that's where they start, their cultural and religious beliefs. We also look into peer pressure. if they see somebody doing it, they want to do it as well. Vakaona manaita zvema-drug, they want to do it. But so I want to do it as well. So we look at the issues of peer pressure. It is like a way iri kudya vana, because iri kuti age group yangu iri kuita zvakadai indikasazviita ndakusaririra. So peer pressure is one thing chekuti it really needs to be addressed, because it's killing the youths.
Yeah, that is very true.
Yeah.
And what can be done to eliminate the challenges that have been stated? Sibo, if you can take this one.
Thank you, Wadzanai. So, as young people, we believe that we need to have our policies aligned to the statistical data that is on the ground. Because currently we are facing high unintended pregnancies amongst our teenagers, but our policies don't reflect that. For example, our age of consent. We cannot access services. So we need to have our policies reflect exactly the data that is on the ground. We need to allow for universal health coverage for young people to be able to get contraceptives that they need. I will also look at our service providers. We have what we call youth-friendly corners. But most young people are complaining that they are not as friendly as they're supposed to be. So I think this is a clarion call to our youth-friendly service providers to become more youthful and friendly to our young people, to encourage uptake of these services that are already there. And another thing is, as young people, we are not voiceless, and we also have ideas. We need to have more meaningful engagement of young people in issues that concern them. And lastly, I will look at the multi-sectoral approach. Our SRHR challenges are not devoid. They don't operate in a vacuum. We need to have other stakeholders coming in. CSOs alone cannot do it. We need to have the government coming in. I think right now we have a problem with unintended pregnancies because education, we have high school dropouts. So we need to have them working together to come up with a way to solve these challenges that we have. Thank you.
All right, and you mentioned the government. Why should the government invest in SRHR for young people?
Currently, 60% of our population is youthful. And if we want to harness the demographic dividend, we need to ensure that our SRHR is targeting our young people. What I mean by our demographic dividend is that we need to be able to reap the benefits the most socially and economically from our young people now, rather than to deal with the issues later.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that was more of an introduction to the sexual and reproductive health rights and the challenges. But today is World Contraception Day. So maybe if we can kind of go back a little bit. I think I mentioned in my introduction that there's a high rate among young women when it comes to the unmet needs for their family planning. What are the challenges that are being faced when it comes to these services?
Okay, thank you. First and foremost, I've noticed that most of the times as young people, we tend to shift the blame on the service provision. We just tend to shift the blame on the environment and everything that's going on. We do not own up ourselves. As young people, for example, if I can put it this way, under Youthwise, what we do, we go into the communities. We have young people at the center of the programming. So we are the young people dealing with young people, linking them to service provision, linking them to the government, linking them to clinics, linking them to regional organization. Through our youth hubs, also we provide safe spaces for young people. Now, there is an issue of ignorance itself that is found within us young people. What do I mean? There is an issue of sexualized drug use, where, there's a lot of partying going on. If you visit around the clubs, everybody's throwing parties nowadays. A lot of people indulge under the influence. As much as people have obtained the condoms, they have them in their pockets. But then when like they say, don't drink and drive, young people need to know, do not drink and indulge. Because you do not know, you are not in your sober mind. So that's number one. I'll get back to your answer. Now, number two, there is also the issue of, now, a service is there, but then we have the service providers themselves not having the equipment to give these young people, I don't know if I use the right word, not having the right tools that are needed. For example, when we were doing an issue around factors, barriers to contraceptives use, young people indicated that there is an issue of it being like there is a sexist thing, like there is no inclusion that is involved. When we talk about contraceptives, we do not have boys being roped in the conversation. Most of the times it's all about women contraceptives, but we also have women condoms, of which the uptake or the use of female condoms is not as ripe as it should be. When we talk about condoms, the first thing that comes to your brain are the male condoms themselves. So which means now when the burden of contraceptive use is left with the women only, we are not bringing everybody to account for what should be an inclusive agenda as well. So I just wanted to tackle it from an angle where everybody should be a stakeholder. Not because we can sit here and complain every day. That's what we do. We are young people. We have to blame someone for something that we can be responsible. But when we are put at the center of the programming, like for example, here it's only young people having this conversation. If everybody can account, if everybody can be responsible, we can actually get somewhere as young people.
Yeah, that is very true. Because I heard somewhere that a woman can have a child once within a year, but a man can be a Nick Cannon, literally, and have many. So that is very true. We do need to engage men and bring them into the conversation. But ma-streets aromboti chiko nenyaya yema-contraceptives kana tikanyatsopinda-pinda ma-streets zviri kunzi china yawo.
As someone who works in the streets, I must say the streets are not homogeneous. That's one thing that we have to come to terms with, because you have a little bit of everyone. Everybody, Tom, Dick, and Joe, they're all in the streets. Now, it's now a matter of influence. When we are talking about the streets, we have to look at who is being influential in the streets. Now, when we look at the person who's being influential, how are they being influential to young people? Most of the times, most of the guys who are influential, they are not saying anything contrary to contraceptives. They're just pushing their own agendas. We literally do not have this in the streets like it's supposed to be. People are more worried about virgins. People are more worried about nanny virgins. People are worried about what you're wearing. Even if you put a comment, because nowadays the streets, like the communities, are more social than the streets. So the streets right now, there is misinformation. As much as we can talk of information, there is no knowledge in the streets, because having information is one thing, but having knowledge is another thing. So yes, the information is there, but people do not have the knowledge. Someone can know that you need a condom to have sex, but then maybe correct and consistent use of the contraceptives also. So there's actually more that needs to be done in the streets. And the streets right now, if I'm to answer you frankly, they are not saying anything. In terms of contraceptive use,
yeah, there's really need to start that conversation. Contraceptives. And I think to Varaidzo, I would like to ask, Kuti, what are the contraceptives that are available to young people?
Okay, thank you. So we have barrier methods, we have non-hormonal methods, and hormonal methods. So for barrier methods, we're talking about condoms, the female and the male condoms. And for hormonal methods, we are talking about those methods that play around with the hormones, right? So we are talking about the injection, the depot for 3 months. We are also talking about implanon for 3 years. We are also talking about no plant 1 and no plant 2. And for non-hormonal, we are talking about the loop, the IUCD. It does not interfere with the hormones. So those are the methods that we have, and they are all safe for young people. So anyone between the ages 10 to 24 can access those methods, and they are safe to use.
Thank you so much. And is there a method yonofunga kuti this method is not for young people, it's not suitable for a young person?
No, there is no method yet. Well, there is actually one, tubal litigation, the one you tie the tubes. That's the one that I think is not suitable for young people, because you still have to reproduce. But the other ones, they are safe, although they might have the side effects here and there, but they are totally safe for young people.
All right, thank you. Because young people obviously have these questions. If I am to get contraception, papi, and there's a lot of myths and misconceptions when it comes to contraception. But thank you so much. And usually also, I think I'm going to come to you, Melody.
Okay.
My as young people, we have a fear for pregnancy most times. There's a fear of pregnancy and there's not really much talk about STIs. There's not a fear. Vanarukuziva kuti kune ma-STIs, but kakutya keke kuti hey, it's not there. So what do you think should be done to prevent both pregnancy and STI amongst young people?
Okay, as for me, I think streets are fana ukuthi HIV, iriko, STI iriko. I talked about the voucher system to say what we have noted that we have a number of young people who are no screen wa STI, who are no rapwa STI. Numbo atombotke atomborina basa numbo achke, but then we are saying even if ukashandisa family planning imwe yawashandisa, you need to use a condom because you need to protect yourself. It's your health, it's your responsibility, it's your priority. Prioritize your body, prioritize your health. You have your rights, right? So we are saying as young people you really need to use a condom. And this sweet paper nage, but you guys paunozona mumwe abatwa nemuzvezve ndo paunozonote ma-streets asi safe because kunzo anzi guyu kutsukira mukunze mukatiri nemashoshe, so tinenge takatopenya, but you wouldn't know. And for it's so sad for the women because STI yemukadzi kuti ibude it takes time, but for alpha kungodaiso pasina nguva inenge yatobuda, but for me unokwanisa kutozonzwa audio kuti asisina kumira mushe but mukati watopera. So for the young girls out there, be responsible, make sure that you use a condom. Kana ufunga kuita sebonde tinitranbons na alpha, you might have the information but you don't have the knowledge. We talk of correct and consistent use of condoms. I have noticed that many young people, they think they know how to use a condom. Then they tend to say condom arite, condom no best, are best kana ngori chansa shakanaka jet. So you need the knowledge. Yes.
Thank you. Do you have something to add?
Yeah, I want to add. So I want to add panyaye kuti varikuchika numbu than my STIs. So I was talking to this other girl and then she was like, it's better for me to suffer inside than to suffer outside. Because ndikaita numbu, everybody's gonna see, everybody's going to talk about me. Muraini ndichataurwa mama kuchechi vanenge vakutonyadziswa. But if I have HIV, it's just me. I can go to clinic, don't try my pills zangu, muchinyarare, nobody hapana anomboona. So to them, varikuti it's easier to suffer inside than kuti ndo bring a shame, ndone konzi ndane numbu, but I can just take my pills low and sina kuziva. So that's actually what the streets are saying.
Wow.
Yeah.
And actually the medical advancing that has been occurring has actually been a gift and a curse. Because nowadays people know that you can take your medicine, which is a good thing, but then that's not how we intended it to be. We wanted to end AIDS, not to promote promiscuity. That's not what we're doing, which is one thing I also wanted to say just quickly. When we are talking about contraceptives, we are not urging young people to have sex. We are not going against our moral culture as Africans or any other different religion beliefs out there. We are just advocating for increased access to contraceptives to those who need them when they need them. That's what we are trying to say here.
Okay, all right.
But so, if you are not having sex, please abstain. We come with that message as well. Sure. But if you are sexually active, use protection. That's what we are saying.
So are we saying there's a role that is missing when it comes to prevention, which is the role of the parents to the child? Is there a gap that is there, Melody?
Yeah, I feel like yes, because like Alpha said, we talk of abstinence, yes, but for those who are indulging, we act innocent pambet my parents like but then kuma universities zviri kuitika. So as parents now they have to sit down with the kids, atisina na tete na nasekuru vekare vekuti taiza kuti ainorairwa. And if you miss these like sessions ekuti hauna kwawazvinzwa, hauna kwaunozvizivira, iwo imagine mama vako vakakudza kuti mwanangu kune chinonzi HIV, kune inonzi STI, kana wazofunga zvebonde, tiri kuti hatisi kuparidza kuti ita bonde, but uri kumudzidzisa kuti azive. So the moment anoda kuenda job anozoti mama wangu kati kune chirwere, hazvibatsiri here kuti tinge tine munhu anoziva kuti ndikaindulge ndinoita chirwere ndisina protection, nekuti aiwa ngatisamudze hazvisi kuitika but zviri zvinhu zviri kuitika. As parents out there, let's face reality. Hatisi kuparidza immorality kuti paridzirai vana kuti go and have sex, but mudzidzise kuti ndo zviriko. Now parents, is the high time for you to sit down with your kids to say watotete vevana vako wakutovaudza in a way yekuti hausi kusapota kuti ita zvebonde, right, but mudzidzise kuti kune zvakadai nezvakadai, ukadai so zvino mangwana anochema newe. Ukaziva kuti mama wangu akamondudza kuti kune ndikaita sex ndinokwanisa kuzoita nhumbu, pandinoita nhumbu ndinochema kuti but mai vangu vakandudza pandakamboudzwa. You understand? So parents out there, ngatibatsirane nevechidiki kuti tinzise kuti zvinhu zviriko. We act innocent, that's the truth, but we are doing these things. Ngatibatsirane nevana because kumba ndo kwandiri kubva. Ndikaudzwa mumba, of course sei wachikazoya kazondudza zvandudza but mama wangu ndokwanisa kuvateerera kudarika iwewe wazondudza zvimwe zvinhu.
Thank you so much.
Can I just...
Okay, you go first.
Right. No, it's just that this is such an interesting topic.
Sure.
And just last week we were having the same discussion with parents. And yes, as young people we're saying we want to be able to have these conversations. But our parents have been asking, how do I start having this conversation with my child? Where do I even begin? You know, do I sit down and say, okay, fine, so today we're going to start talking about sex? No. I think it's also important for us to highlight that you start from a very young age. It's not something that you can start talking about when I'm 18.
Exactly.
Then that's when you start that's when you then want to start telling me that don't have sex, use a condom. It starts when I'm still young. Create the conversation whilst I'm still young. That way it's easier for me and I feel free to tell you about what's going on, be it in my love life, be it in my sex life. And some may ask, but how do I strike that conversation? Maybe my child is already 17. You know, social media is there. There are always so many stories that are coming out. You know, you take that, use that. So there's this story that's been going on. What do you think about it? And that's how you start the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Alright, I just want to add, Kuti, the parents think Kuti they are protecting their children by not telling us, but you find out Kuti vanenge vachitokanganisachi vana. Like she said, Kuti, you start with age appropriate information because you cannot start talking about maybe how to prevent pregnancy for somebody who is 13 or 12 years. No, but you start with something which is age appropriate to them, something that they will understand gradually, and then they understand. So I believe good parents should have that kind of relationship from a very early age. By the time they reach teenage, they'll be able to talk about those things. So for example, I was talking with this nurse, and then she was like, the first time I had to talk about SRHR to my child, we were watching a movie, and then a kissing scene via Buddha. So my child atesa pasi and then I asked her why urkutesa pasi. That's when she started telling me, and I was even shocked. I think she said she was around 12, 13 years, and I was even shocked by the information deep 12-year-old. And even as a parent, I was like, no, Wanwangu doesn't know anything. But then the information that she gave me, I was even shocked. From there, I was like, no, I need to have a serious conversation with my kids. So it's actually a good thing for parents to have that kind of connection with their kids.
Oh wow, thank you so much for that. That was very informative. I think people need to utilize these opportunities because kazhinji kapanobuda kissing scene munhu esanenge adaipa phone zvino mama akunyepedzera unga hapana chawaona.
And what's also weird nowadays, even cartoons kiss.
Hey, exactly.
And if you do not teach your kids the streets well, and I don't think that's...
And if the streets
you do not
teach
want
your kids, then you want very harsh.
You do not want the streets to teach your children. But whilst we're still on prevention, I think maybe you can tell us more about HIV prevention. How can young people prevent HIV?
Okay. First of all, I would just like to highlight that HIV is still there. There's been a misconception that has been going around that hakusisina HIV or it's okay, it's gone on the low. It's still there. And we have what we call the ABC strategy for HIV prevention, which I will just highlight a bit. We have our abstinence, which is something that we always preach to our young people. Abstinence is best. Abstinence is key. It's the only sure way to ensure that you will not get HIV. And if that fails, we have what we then call being faithful to one faithful partner, and correct and consistent condom use. I think they've already highlighted more on that, because it's one thing to use a condom, it's another to use it correctly. And then we also encourage delaying sexual debut and early treatment of STIs. Because what happens with STIs is if it goes untreated, it leaves a doorway for HIV. So early treatment is always, and being able to have free and frank discussions with your partner. As young people, we always say, if you're not ready to talk about sex, you're not ready to have sex at all. So if you can't have free and frank discussions, stay away. If you cannot negotiate for safer sex, then don't bother at all. And we have new innovations that have come on board now. We have our PEP, which is our post-exposure prophylaxis. If you've slept with someone and you're doubting, we are straight, there's that pill which you can take after. And then we have PrEP, which is the pre-exposure prophylaxis, which you take for the duration of the time that you think you're exposed to HIV. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Very informative. ABCs. Mango Jaira and A for apple. But now we've got A for abstinence. It's getting broader and broader. And then just to conclude our discussion, Alpha, I heard that you are having a high-level event activity for the World Contraception Day. Can you tell us more about it? Where will it be? All of that.
Yes. And I'm pretty excited because as young people, we've been advocating and doing activism around being involved and being part of the bigger picture in terms of horizontal inclusion, because we firmly believe that it's not for young people if we are not part of it.
Yes.
So right now we're taking an initiative where we want to celebrate these things. Anyways, we make a bulk of the population now. So yeah, we're gonna celebrate World Contraception Day in Epworth on the 1st of October. Yes. Yeah. So basically it'll be like a very good opportunity for young people to mix and share ideas, share innovations, and we're also going to have representatives of young people and young leaders and people in the community. So it's going to be, and also we're going to have adults as well. So it's not going to be just young people. So talk of inclusion, that's the place to be.
Oh, wow. Talk about inclusion. That is the place to be. So I think from this discussion that we've had here, we've talked about having free and frank conversations. We've spoken about access to services. We've spoken about peer pressure. Streets. So which means contraception, it's not just something kondo. There's so much more to contraception. And I think if you go to the event, na Alpha, you'll be able to get more information, and it is open to both adults and to young people and to service providers as well that are willing to go and take part in this activity. We thank you, and we hope that you are willing to get more information concerning contraception and you get a well-informed decision, Futi. Thank you so much for joining us. Until next time, goodbye.